Entry 1, 13th of Highmark, 204, Second Era. I've decided to begin keeping a journal of the goings on around Storvia. I don't rightly know who I am writing this for. Maybe my daughter? Maybe just to keep my mind from souring. The rains have been sparse this summer. The clouds drift over the Andril peaks, soft and white as ever, but offer no quenching while overhead. The dirt of the fields crunch under my shoes, and the crops struggle against the relentless heat. Even the livestock seem to suffer. They spend most of the day near the river, sheltering their wool and fur beneath the shade of the trees that line its shrinking banks. It's clear the mountain peaks have long since relinquished what remained of their snowy caps, and this is all the water left to us. Wisps of breeze offer little reprieve, carrying the dry heat across the hills and cracking the lips of all, young and old alike. Sarah tries to comfort me at night. Elandros hasn't forgotten us. He will send rains soon, she whispers after Abigail has gone to bed. Her young mind need not worry over such things, but I fear she's catching on all the same. Burek, the village priest, warns that this drought is Orin's punishment upon the religion for our failure to spread and nurture the light. The sun god beams his displeasure down, keeping Elandros' storm clouds at bay. I fear he may be right. Many of us have stopped going to chapel, choosing instead to spend our days in the fields, trying to wring what little yield we can from the earth. But now, chapel feels like a luxury I can't afford, though my heart aches for it all the same. Perhaps I'll go soon and make an offering to the gods. Entry 2, 16th of Highmark, 204, Second Era. Today, I took my family to chapel. Priest Burek greeted us with his usual warmth, though there was something in his eyes, a weight he couldn't fully hide. Perhaps it's only that I haven't attended in some time, but the feeling lingered all the same. The chapel was fuller than I remember, faces I hadn't seen in weeks, perhaps months, all gathered with quiet tension. Murmurs of wilted fields, parched soil, and the shrinking river drifted through the hall like ghosts, a chorus of whispers that made the village itself feel as though it were turning to bone. Burek's sermon offered little comfort. He spoke again of punishment, of repentance, and of the need to return to the light. His words hung heavy in the air, burdens fit for draft horses. I saw many glance about uneasily, no doubt revisiting their own sins, just as I did. I had hoped for something more encouraging, but I've never gained much from hoping. After the service, Sarah and I spoke with the tanners. Their crops are faring no better than ours, and the game has been moving further from its usual groves. Their boy, James, has taken to odd jobs around the village, anything to put a few coins in their purse. He's a good lad, quiet, but dependable. Rumors were circulating as well. Word is that Houghton suffers worse than we do. Drought, sick livestock, animals vanishing without a trace. It's hard to hear. That quiet little town holds good folk. The livestock dogs have been alerting for the woodline after dusk these past few nights. There's been no sign of wolves or other predators, but something's out there. They growl low and steady, ears pinned forward, refusing to leave their posts, even when called. Last night, one barked sharply, then backed away, with its tail tucked, eyes fixed on the trees. From the barn came the restless bleating of sheep and goats, hooves scraping against the boards. I stepped out with a lantern, but the forest swallowed the light. The silence beyond the clearing felt unnatural. No crickets, no wind, only stillness. I'll look for tracks come morning. Whatever's out there, it's watching. I can feel it. Entry 3, 17th of Highmark, 204, Second Era. I found the marks just after sunup. The pale blue sky offered enough light to steady my nerves, though the woods felt wrong. Too still, too brittle. Leaves crunched underfoot like dry parchment, and the soil beneath was cracked like old pottery. Then I saw them, deep gouges carved into the bark of several trees, uneven and spaced too far apart for any bear. My first thought was a mountain cat hunting for a stray lamb or goat, but the marks didn't fit. They looked deliberate, as if something had tested the tree or claimed it. My memory flickered to the old stories my father used to tell by firelight, warnings meant to keep me from wandering after dark. I used to laugh at those tales. Today, I'm not so sure. I'll be keeping the flock in closer, just to be safe. Whatever made those marks, I hope it moves on soon. Sarah and Abigail went to the market today. Sarah returned with a basket of root vegetables and a concerned expression. The stalls are thinning, produce scarce, meat abundant from shepherds culling their flocks. The square felt heavy, people moving with heads bowed, smiles worn thin as old cloth. She said a group of imperial recruiters had arrived, setting up a booth near the wall. Two men in red and gold tunics, dark yellow mantles draped over their shoulders, a golden sun pinned to each breast. They worked quickly, voices cutting through the hush, calling out to young men who needed a brighter future. The booth itself was draped in crimson, flanked by banners bearing the imperial insignia, a golden sun with 12 rays. The calm face of Orin staring forward. A parchment hung beneath. Labor camp and military service. Monthly pay, daily food, and quarters. I imagine the young men are already eager to sign up and march off to war. I'll admit, the thought of wealth and glory on some distant battlefield once tempted me in my youth, but my place is here. It always has been. Sarah also mentioned a young priestess traveling with the recruiters. She wore olive-colored robes and carried a silver staff, moving silently through the square as though she were studying the village itself. Apparently, she glided through the market, eyeing produce, speaking softly and cheerfully with the townsfolk, before disappearing into the chapel with Burek. A priestess of the Sara came to bless the fields, Sarah said. It seemed like all eyes were on her when she entered the chapel. Everyone stopped in their tracks to watch her move about. She seems like a happy girl, and for a moment, her presence lightened the mood in the market. I felt a flicker of relief at that. Maybe the gods haven't forgotten us after all. I'm glad Burek and Lord Nathaniel's pleas to the church have been heard. We can't go on much longer without outside support or some much needed rain. I dared not ruin Sarah's mood with the news of the claw marks. Her smile is rare enough. I'll carry that burden myself for now. Entry 4, 19th of Highmark, 204, Second Era. The priestess, Natalia, has begun making her rounds to every field in Storvia. The whole village gathered to watch her first blessing. She stood in the Braxton's barley field, just beyond Storvia's palisade, her silver staff catching the sunlight as the green jewel at its head began to glow softly. Her voice carried across the rows, steady at first, though I heard a faint waver beneath the words. Her hands trembled as she raised them skyward. Then the miracle came. The brittle stalks swelled and straightened, their sickly yellow fading into green. A cheer rose from the crowd, raw and desperate, and for a moment hope returned to faces worn thin by drought. Natalia's eyes brightened as she released a quiet sigh, like someone lifting a weight too heavy to bear. Sarah squeezed my shoulder and whispered, "See? I told you the gods haven't forgotten about us." I wanted to believe her. For a short while, the village felt lighter. The Imperial recruiters kept calling for volunteers, while Natalia retreated to the chapel, mixing medicines for the sick. She seemed to breathe new life into Storvia. Or maybe we only wanted to believe she could. Gorman Tanner and I went to the tavern this evening. Familiar faces offered us a nod before returning to their talk. Summer merchants mingled with locals, their worn traveling cloaks adding muted color to the room. The smell of Storvia stew and hunter pies mingled with pipe smoke, thick and sweet. Gorman spoke of James, his boy, taking work as a shepherd for Lord Tobias. We were both glad the lad stayed close to home, though Gorman's smile faltered when he mentioned claw marks near his barn. I told him I've seen the same. Neither of us said what we were thinking. While we drank, traveling merchants whispered of mangled wildlife along the roads, chunks of flesh torn out, deep cuts in places no wolf or bear could reach. Their words clung to me like smoke. Then, a grizzled old man in a long teal tunic slammed his mug against the table, froth spilling over the rim. The room fell quiet. "It doesn't just go after animals," he said, his thick coastal accent sharpening every word. "We lost a wagon hand to the damn thing 2 nights past. Heard the boy scream and watched him get dragged into the trees. Whole thing was over before we had our boots on." No one doubted him. His cold expression carried the kind of truth that turns your stomach. Gorman and I shared a look, finished our drinks, and parted for the night. When I returned home, the dogs were restless, hackles raised toward the forest. I stepped out to the barn. The sheep huddled together, stamping nervously, their eyes wide and white in the dim light. Then it came, a screech, sharp and hollow, like a hawk's cry, twisted into something wrong. It was close, too close. The sound froze me where I stood. A foul stench drifted on the wind, sickness and decay curling into my nostrils. My skin prickled, every instinct screaming. to run, yet my legs refused to move. I wanted to brush it off as a trick of the dark, but I'm running out of grace for coincidence. The sound lingered long after it faded, and I knew the old stories weren't just stories. Entry 5, 21st of Highmark, 104, 2nd era. Last night, I dreamed the riverbed had gone dry. Not merely cracked from heat, but split open, the way old bone does when left too long in the sun. The fields were black, not burned, but rotting, as though something had sickened the soil itself. The wind whistled through the leafless trees, carrying dust and the scent of decay. When water finally returned, it wasn't water at all. A thick, tar-like current seeped through the valley, slow and viscous, hissing wherever it touched the earth. The smell of pitch clung to me, even after I woke. I don't know if it was a warning, or simply the mind of a man worn thin. Sarah knew something was wrong as soon as she saw me. She took my hand without a word. She carries her own worries, yet somehow remains steady for Abigail and for me. I thank the gods for that strength, and that Abigail stays close. She's too young to understand the fear creeping through this valley, but she listens well and doesn't stray. She asks so many questions, though. Papa, why is it so hot? Papa, why is the grass brown instead of green? Papa, why does everyone look sad? Their weight settles on me deeper than she knows. All I can offer are hollow reassurances. Natalia continues blessing the fields each morning. Folks gather to watch her work, as if their presence alone might lend her strength. I've noticed her hands tremble more each day. Sweat beads across her brow before the prayer is half finished. Afterward, she walks the square, offering comfort to anyone who needs it. Stories of the goddess Thesara, of hearth and home, spoken with a smile that doesn't quite mask her exhaustion. Later, she visits the houses, anointing doorposts with oil. Sarah wants to hear her teachings. I encouraged it. There is little work to tend in the fields anyway, but trouble grows at the wood's edge. New claw marks have appeared, fresh, deep, and far too wide. The older ones have begun to rot, blackening the bark like a spreading infection. A sour, heavy odor clings to the trees near them. The same stench from my dream. Even the sheep refuse to graze close, though grass is thinning fast. Hunger will drive them there soon, and I fear whatever waits in those shadows is growing bolder. Entry 6, 23rd of Highmark, 204, 2nd era. Natalia's blessings seem to drain her each day. Her voice once rang clear across the fields. Now it wavers by the second verse. The glow from her staff is faint, barely more than a candle's flicker. Still, the villagers gather, some out of gratitude, most out of desperation. The Braxton's barley, blessed just a few days ago, has already wilted again. Stalks curled like dying fingers. After the rites, Natalia searches the outskirts for herbs that haven't shriveled. She grinds what she finds into medicines, though her satchel grows lighter with each passing morning. The children follow her, laughing at the way she can make plants move at the flick of her staff, clinging to whatever wonder remains. In the evenings, she meets with Burek at the chapel. Their discussions, when visible, are hushed, and their burdens cling to them. Sarah and Abigail have taken to attending Natalia's teachings. It gives them something to hold on to while the heat bears down. While they were away in town, I continued my ritual of paling water to whatever crops still look salvageable. On the fourth trip back from the river, I stumbled, dropping the buckets on the fading grass. Frustration swelled within me like a hearth's fire. I kicked one of the buckets, shouting curses, looking toward the gods as I yelled, "Why? Why do you turn your faces from us?" After the outburst, I gathered myself and trudged back for more water. The livestock have begun grazing near the tree line again. Hunger leaves little room for fear. The grass is almost gone, and the river runs shallow and dull. Today, Gorman stopped by, trying for his usual cheer. "My boy is taking old Lord Tobias's sheep up toward the mountain," he said, "hoping to find greener ground. Keep him in your thoughts." His smile wavered when he spoke of the Dahmer's goat, what was left of it. Flesh torn clean, as if claws had raked straight through it. He tried to laugh it off. "James is good with that axe of his. Bet he could take on a whole pack of wolves." I nodded, though neither of us believed what stalks these woods are mere wolves. James is strong, and Edgar, the reeve, trained him well. But strength means little against whatever prowls in the tree line. Gorman left for town, likely to buy feed and drown his worry. I returned hauling water from the river. Each day, it sinks lower, the surface dull as old tin. Clouds gather at the mountain peaks again, dark and heavy. I can't tell if they promise rain or something else. Entry 7, 25th of Highmark, 204, 2nd era. Last night, after we had settled into bed, we heard a loud pecking on the roof. The wind picked up, cool and humid. Then the sound of it came. Rain. I got up and looked outside. "Rain," I said aloud. Relief washed over me like a river washing over a stone. I lay back down beside Sarah. "See? I told you we weren't forgotten," she murmured, with a hint of smugness. For the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully. By daylight, the shower had ended. A cooler breeze flicked across the field, and the ground had already drunk every drop. A hopeful peace rose in my chest, but it didn't last long. On my way to the barn to let the animals out, I saw them. The claw marks, the same ones that cursed the tree line, now gouged into my barn wall. No more than 4 strides from where we slept. I counted the livestock as they filed out. 1 lamb, missing. Large tracks, like giant chicken prints, each wider than 2 boot lengths, led to and from the barn. A faint drag mark accompanied them, pointing toward the river. I followed, though my stomach warned against it. At the water's edge, where the river now ran slightly higher, the drag marks ended. On the opposite bank, I saw the lamb, red, torn open, entrails spilling into the shallows. A hindquarter was missing, flesh raked deep, lines of meat scooped out as if carved. My heart sank. It had been here, at my house. I hurried back toward the barn, glancing over my shoulder more than once. Should I tell Sarah, Gorman, or keep it to myself? Sarah's voice broke my thoughts. Elias, come, come. Natalia's blessing will be wonderful after the rain. So I went. Natalia stood under the morning sun in a new field, looking refreshed for the first time in days. Her blessing came to her with less strain, and the plants responded in kind. The excitement felt like her very first blessing all over again. A moment of relief washed through the crowd. Edgar the Reeve was present. After the rites, while the villagers mingled, I approached him and quietly shared what I had found. He stroked his whitening beard. Ah, shameful business, that. At your barn, you say? I'll have one of the boys take a look today. We've been looking into whatever's after the livestock. His reassurance felt half-hearted. He doesn't know, or doesn't want to admit, what truly stalks these woods. The militia is made of farm boys, not hunters. Edgar departed, leaving me with my thoughts. A brisk smack on the back jolted me. See that rain last night? Gorman laughed, clearly delighted at the break in the heat. Looks like things will work out after all. I bet James got soaked. It always rains harder in the mountains. I bit my tongue about the lamb. Gorman carries enough worry for his boy without mine added to it. Back at home, Sarah and I watched Abigail play, waving a stick as if casting blessings of her own. Yet my eyes drifted again and again to the tree line. Was it out there even now? Watching? Waiting? Entry 8, 28th of Highmark, 204, Second Era. Sarah jolted me awake. Elias, Elias, she whispered, urgent and trembling. Something is happening. I rose and heard it too. Commotion outside. Voices carrying through the night. Shouting. Running. Fear. I slid on my boots, grabbed a lantern, and stepped outside. The air was dry again, though cooler. Down the road, young men were calling for Gorman. Then silence. 2 militiamen came running past my house from Storvia. I called out to them. A shepherd is missing, one of them shouted between heavy breaths, the moon glinting off his nasal helm. I told Sarah to stay inside, and followed after them. Gorman stood on his doorstep, visibly distraught, fumbling with his boots and reaching for his bow. Elias, he gasped, relief and dread mixing in his voice. James is missing. There's trouble. I nodded. Let's go then. 3 shepherd boys, the 2 militiamen, Gorman, and I began the long walk toward the mountains. Moonlight poured down over the fields. One of the militiamen looked up at it and muttered, What chaos have you brought us, Nasara? Gorman and I exchanged uneasy glances at the mention of the moon goddess's volatility. After several dreadful hours of walking, Gorman whispering prayers and rasped reassurances to himself, we reached the grazing grounds. The grass was healthier here, a faint sign of life the valley no longer offered. We spread out along the tree line, lantern swaying, calling James's name. It didn't take long. I found him, one of the militiamen shouted, his voice cracking. I saw his lantern whipping back and forth. We ran. The militiamen tried to hold Gorman back, but my stomach dropped, like a stone when my lantern light revealed the scene. James lay splayed open, beside a half-mutilated ewe. His axe rested near his hand, coated in dark, thick blood, almost the consistency of honey. A few black feathers clung to the liquid. The stench was sour and heavy. Gorman tore free of the guards and fell to his knees beside the ruined body of his boy. His scream split the night. Pain, disbelief, sorrow, and hatred all twisted together. It echoed through the quiet forest. Too quiet. Now that I think of it, the woods held their breath. Then we heard it. From deeper in the trees. Hey, stop. Wait. A scream. James's voice, but wrong. Distorted. Sharper. Higher. As if stretched across the throat of something that had never been human. We need to leave. Now, one of the militiamen barked. But Gorman, shaking with grief-maddened rage, lurched to his feet. I'll kill it, he roared. I'll kill you. He surged toward the sound, but the guards seized him, wrestling him back. You're no good dead, I shouted. The shepherd boys wrapped James's remains in his cloak, and we began the long return to Storvia. Every step, I expected the creature to burst from the trees. It followed us. Hey, stop, wait, scream. The same twisted voice, mocking us, forbidding us. By the time we reached Storvia, the sky had begun to pale. We woke Burek, who blanched at the mutilated corpse laid before him. Elaine can't see her boy like this, he whispered. She can't see James like this. Gorman paced in circles, broken and muttering. We agreed. No mother should endure such horror. We buried James at once. Burek gave the funeral blessing, voice quivering, while we dug the grave. When I finally returned home, exhaustion tangled with grief and the lingering horror of that twisted voice. I lay in bed, unable to sleep, replaying Gorman's screams and the creature's mimicry over and over again. Entry 9, 29th of Highmark, 204, Second Era. Rumors of poor James spread quickly, and by mid-morning, much of Storvia had gathered within the palisade, beside the chapel. The grave lay just behind it, among the older stones, fresh earth packed down, and ringed with river rocks placed during the night. Elaine knelt near the grave, sobbing softly, her grief contained only by exhaustion. Sarah and Gorman stayed close to her, one arm around her shoulders, murmuring quiet comforts. Abigail stood beside them, hands folded, tight in front of her. She does not yet understand death, but she understands stillness, and she held herself accordingly. Priest Burek spoke for a time. His words were gentle, familiar, of James's diligence, his willingness to serve, his journey beyond this life. They were words meant to ease the living more than explain the loss. I do not blame him for that. There are no words that fit what happened. Natalia stood near the chapel wall, her silver staff resting against her shoulder. She did not raise it. She only bowed her head and remained silent. It felt right that she did. Edgar the Reeve was present as well. The militiamen stood behind the gathered townsfolk, a thin line of faded blue along the edge of the square. Their posture was formal. James had been one of them, and they stood as if to remind us of that. The townsfolk murmured quietly among themselves. I heard fragments as they passed. Speculation, divine punishment, whispers of what might come next. No one spoke loudly. Fear does not require volume. After what passed for a service, people lingered. A length of twine, a few wildflowers, and a small knife were placed near the stones. One by one, they drifted back to their homes. Edgar approached me then, his manner careful. Elias, he said quietly, that sounds like some ordeal. James will be missed. The boy had grit. He was a good lad, I replied. It was all I had. Edgar nodded once. I need to ask you a few questions about last night. The more we know, the sooner we can put an end to this thing. We spoke at the edge of the square, away from listening ears. I told him what I could: the tracks, the wounds, the blood on the axe, the voice. I did not embellish. He listened closely, asking only what was needed. He told me he had already spoken with the shepherd boys and the militiamen who had gone with us. He did not repeat what they had said. The patrols will be increased, he told me. We'll range wider. No one goes out alone after dusk. I nodded. It was what a man in his position should say. It was what we needed to hear. By afternoon, the square had emptied. The chapel doors were closed. The grave remained. The village felt different after that. Doors were barred earlier. Children were kept close. The tavern did not open. The militia moved in pairs along the palisade and the roads, lanterns shaded, eyes always drifting toward the tree line beyond the walls. At home, Sarah tended the hearth in silence. Abigail stayed near her side, quieter than usual. Papa, she asked once, is James coming back? Sarah answered before I could. I was grateful for that. That evening, I stood near the barn and looked out toward the woods as the light faded. Nothing stirred, no sound carried. Yet the feeling remained. Something had come into our lives, taken what it wished, and withdrawn again. And though men now walked the roads with spears and lanterns, an order held for the moment. I could not shake the sense that we were being measured.